Okay, shall we let people in?
Yeah, just let me clean this. Let me just change this there. Okay, I'm in this mode. Still on my whole desktop showing.
All right, we're letting people in. Still have a couple people coming in still.
Welcome, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
everybody.
Hi.
We're just going to wait for a few more people to join.
You like it?
And we're going to ask if everybody can please mute your sound. That
Yeah,
would be
sure.
awesome.
Okay.
Looks like we have a couple people here that are having a bit of a challenge
Can
joining
you tell me
us.
if it's muted?
Ramona, you are.
No, I
Cecilia
can
is
hear
not.
it.
No.
I wasn't muted.
I can hear
Okay.
it through your, you should turn your volume up, I think.
No, I can hear her, but you can hear me, correct?
I can hear someone
Yes.
ask me if I can just hear them. Which I think is that you,
Cecilia.
Cecilia? Yeah. Here, I'll mute you on this end. Oh.
Mute button.
Oh. Okay, I muted you. Can you hear me? Oh, you can't tell you because you're muted. Sorry. Okay, we have a few more people we're going to let in. Not sure who Emily is, but she's having a real challenge joining. So maybe it's an internet. So I think we probably could start. And I'm Kate Taylor's the chair of the Artist Network. So, and we've got Angela Lane, who is the director of our outdoor shows. And Barb Lewis will be with us for a while. And she is our office sweetheart. She's our office manager, and she's the person who's kind of probably the focal point of the organization. So I just wanted to first of all say congratulations to all of you guys who got into the Riverdale Art Walk. Give yourselves a hand. No, we can't hear you, but it's awesome. It's a tough jury every year. And so, I think that if you got in, you should be really proud of yourself. And our goal here today is to make sure that you make the most of this opportunity and that we've prepared you to have a super successful show. And I will hand it over to Ange.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. So the purpose of tonight, so if you haven't muted yourself, if you can mute yourself, that would be great. If you have any questions throughout, if you can just kind of drop those into the chat. Our goal today is to really just talk about the Riverdale Art Walk. We're really excited about the show this year. We expect to be sort of back to normal in the park. Yay. So we're going to talk a little bit about marketing, about the site logistics, and then really about logistics and like how you can really present yourself well in the booth. Some of this will be repeat for people who've been in our shows before.
Sorry, Ange, I'm just going to correct a second. There's a couple of people who are hearing no sound. So can someone just kind of do a chat in there to make sure that the sound is coming through properly? Because I can have no problem hearing it. I can hear fine. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I think if you don't have sound, you might have to log back, like go to your speakers on your system. You have to, when you join Zoom initially, it'll ask if you want to use audio and you need to say yes, so that you can hear. Okay. All right. So again, we're going to talk about marketing, logistics, and then rocking your participation at the booth. Okay. So first of all, I just wanted to really welcome to Riverdale Art Walk. It's our 25th anniversary this year. So we're really excited about that. And just to let some of you know who might not know yet, that we are actually hosting Riverdale Art Walk 25th celebration. And there's going to be another show at the Leslie Grove Gallery, and it's going to be leading up to the Riverdale Art Walk in-person show at Jimmy Simpson Park. So that is going to run from May 18th through to the Riverdale Art Walk first weekend of June. So I hope that if you participate in the Riverdale Art Walk, if it's really been instrumental in building your art business and it was key into really helping you as an artist, we want to hear your stories. So there's a submission process for that. The submission for the gallery show closes May 1st. So that's just around the corner. So we're asking you to take a look at that. But also, even if you can't put a piece of art in the show, we'd like to hear your stories, do video clips. And we're hopefully going to have some video footage rolling in the gallery from all the different participants for many, many years. So we hope you'll be a part of that. We are going to have an opening party for that show on May 18th. And more importantly, we're going to have a closing party, and that's going to be the Thursday before Riverdale Art Walk. And that'll be a meet and greet for everybody here so that we can meet you and kind of celebrate the Riverdale Art Walk before the show begins.
The other thing too is if you know somebody who used to be in the show years ago, we would love it if you could reach out to them and encourage them to also submit and be part of this project.
Right. I think I just missed a slide. I don't know how to go back on this. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I also I'm going to ask you, one of the things I really need from everybody is to make sure that you're able to stay informed. So we communicate about the art walks in a few different ways. We use our submission platform, which is the Eventany platform, to actually notify artists and do group emails. It seems to work better than things getting stuck in people's spam by sending, 190 artists an email. So if you could please add to your safe sender, and the one way you can do that is add them to your contact list. So express@eventany.com, artistnetwork.dev@gmail.com. That's in regards to your artist gallery, and then Angel@artistnetwork.ca. So those are the places that you might get messaging and information in regards to the show. We also will have an online handbook that's going to be published hopefully within the next couple of days, and also a YouTube channel that you can follow. It's Artist Network. So you're going to look for Artists Network on YouTube, and you'll be able to follow us there. But the handbook will be online, and I'll be sending you the password and the link for that. The link for that is on the Riverdale Art Walk site. It'll say artists on the top, but I'll send you the password for that in the next couple of days. So we're going to first talk about marketing, the all-important marketing. So our website is really this is where people are going to go get information about the show. So our promotion and our advertising will all link and promote this website. So again, this is also where you're going to see your artist gallery up here. And the Artist 2022, that's the Artist 2022 handbook. This is going to say Artist 2023 very soon. And you'll be able to log in there with any questions you have in regards to all the content we talk about today and any other updates in regards to information you need to participate in the event. So that's our website. You are going to be in the artist gallery. If you aren't yet, that means you need to create your profile. But if you are a past participant or a past member and you've created a profile, you will automatically show up in the gallery here. So you'll get an email if you haven't yet. You would have got that email, I think, yesterday or today, asking you to create your profile, or a reminder to create your profile if you haven't done that yet. If you already have a profile, it's automatically there. You can go in at any time and update your profile.
And the contracts and the waivers, were they sent to each artist individual? We've had a few questions. Should they have received them already?
So they haven't received them yet. I was going to send them out before the meeting today, but I haven't. So you'll probably get those tomorrow morning. They'll also end up being in the handbook. And then you'll be able to just download them. But I will be emailing them to everybody probably tomorrow morning. So for those who have not created their profile yet in the artist gallery, your profile looks like this. And in the slide beforehand, just so you know, this is not, the images don't show up alphabetically, so people can search, but what we've done is this is just randomized. Every time someone comes in, they're going to see different art, and that just helps people who are lower in the alphabet versus higher in the alphabet. It's just a nice way to present the artist, but anybody can search for anybody here. And then your profile, you're going to build it here. So you have an opportunity to put your Instagram, Facebook, your website, a small bio, and a bunch of different pictures. I think 5. So once you've created your profile once, it'll always be there with the network. And the profile stays live throughout the year. So we promote in many different ways. One of the things we've done so far is we printed and distributed postcards at the Artist Project and promoting both of our outdoor shows. So they look like this. We have some left over from that and they're available for pickup at the Leslie Grove Gallery. We are in the process of creating a new postcard and poster. They're in production with artist images and graphics on the front. And they'll be available for pickup and distribution. The yard signs, they'll be available at the Artist Network as well fairly soon. We're ordering those as well. Posters will be available again as well, and this will also act as our flyer at the event. So it's a small poster, 8.5 by 11. You can use this as a flyer. We distribute these locally in the area as well. Our postcards, by the way, we usually do a postal code drop of about 40,000 around this event as one of our marketing campaigns. We find that the grassroots advertising does work for this event. You should have already received these graphics with your notification. So we hope you've been using them and using them to promote already. There's one here and then there's a customizable one that you can drop your own art images in. We will be sending more graphic images, a newsletter header, and a Facebook graphic. They're in the works. One way that you can advertise yourself and promote yourself is to participate in the I Gave Art Draw. We just ask you to consider that. And what that really does is it helps us build our mailing list on site, but also helps promote you as an artist. So you would volunteer to give a piece of art or print or something that reflects your art. And we randomly pull winners. You would be given a sign for your booth that says that you're participating in that initiative. And we'd also be posting that on our websites in multiple different locations. And that stays on our website for the course of the year, as well as it's promoted through our newsletter campaign, our MailChimp campaign. Newsletters play a huge role marketing the event. We really believe that the email list is gold, and that's why we work really hard to continually build up our mailing list. Kate, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about this, about some of our
I think that the one thing I did want to say here is you can see from what Angela's gone through that the number of initiatives that the Artist Network does to really try and promote Riverdale, to try and communicate to the artists, but also trying obviously to get the word out to collectors. So they come to the event and they buy your art, and we're all super happy. But this has to definitely be a tandem event too. So as much as our newsletter email is gold to us, yours is gold to you as well. So we really encourage you to do lots of marketing as well. And if you're not sure what to do, you can definitely use elements of our newsletter, copy them into your newsletter if you want. But just make sure you kind of have the details there, link it back to the Artist Network website so people can find information like, where to park and how to get there and public transportation and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the celebration show is also giving us a little bit more advertising leverage as well, because we'll be sending out Akimbos for that. We've been advertising ArtWalk, the ArtWalk is already, and so that's going to show up on Akimbos as well as our own newsletters. Another great place for you to easily advertise yourself, and that's on social. So using your Instagram as well as your Facebook. We ask you to please tag at Riverdale ArtWalk as well as Artist Network. We do our best to share depending on the number of posts. We always have to keep a really healthy account, but we've been working really hard on our social. Some of you might know that some of our accounts we lost this past year. And we had to build up a new Leslie Grove Gallery account and Artist Network account. So both those accounts were lost. The Riverdale ArtWalk one wasn't affected at the time, but we actually use all those platforms, including ArtWalk in the Square, to promote all of our shows. And so we use Leslie Grove Gallery as well as the artistnetwork.ca Instagram as well. And those are both new. So we couldn't just do Artist Network again and Leslie Grove Gallery. So we're going to ask you to start by following those two accounts. If you're not yet, please follow those accounts. Actually, all four of these if you aren't yet, and same as our Facebook. If you're on Facebook, if you can follow and like us, that would be great. Our tags for the show are, my I can't see because we're not on the thing.
Riverdale Art Walk and Art Walk 2022.
Yeah,
So one of the
it should
things
be
I just wanted
2023.
to iterate, we do really try hard to forward and share people's emails, especially stories when they've tagged us. But one thing just to remember is because we've lost our account once before, we have to be super, super careful. So if you have not been shared, please don't take it personally. It's just that you kind of happen to be there with a clump of a whole bunch of other artists that were tagging us at the same time.
Yeah, but the best way to get a repost, it's really difficult for us to repost something that you haven't shared or tagged us in. So please tag us.
Yep. Oh, yes, and it should be ArtWalk 2023, not ArtWalk 2022. Good catch. We just tested you to make sure you're paying attention and you got a gold star.
So Instagram, Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about Instagram? Some of the
Sure.
things to think about. With posts?
So when we're promoting the Riverdale Art Walk, we actually promoted across Leslie Grove Gallery, Riverdale Art Walk in the Square, and the Artist Network. So that is one way where we can get the message out and kind of dilute the frequency of posts just so we're healthy. One of the things that we recommend is to, first of all, always make sure you have a live story. They expire after 24 hours. If you have something that's really relevant, we definitely recommend you create a highlight in your Instagram that says Riverdale Art Walk and share those stories there so that people can go back and look at them afterwards. Do use your 15 to 30 hashtags in your post. It is common practice now not to put your hashtags in a separate comment, do it in the original post. Instagram is moving so quickly that your original post gets separated from your hashtags if you put that into a comment and not in the original post. It's good to, Instagram will reward people who are using the newest and best things. So as you kind of know with the whole kerfuffle recently, they prefer reels and video versus stills, and that is definitely something that's going to get you more exposure. That said, it's good to be able to kind of mix it up a little bit, have a reel, maybe one day use the carousel, mix up the content in terms of pictures of your art, pictures in situ, maybe clients that have bought the work. People love to see process videos. One of the things I'm always get a kind of a kick out of is how much people love to see all of the boxes that you're packing up your stuff. You're doing the edges. You've got your car that's packed with stuff. You're kind of, trying to figure out how to put your tent up, things like that. So just really the whole point is to try and encourage your audience to kind of really be there with you and they can get a sense of what you're going through. So that's kind of really where we're looking at doing. If you can share to your Facebook page, that's always good. If you can tag other people, then that's always good. Artist Network does not accept collaborations at this point, and that's really just because it's just too much for us to manage. But one thing that does work very well is if you have other friends in the show, you do a video that captures both of your art, maybe you're there driving there together, do a collaboration. That means that post will show up on both accounts at the same time, so you end up getting more frequency there. Let me see questions. Can we tag older posts for reposting? Yep, I think if the content is relevant, then absolutely do. Of course, Throwback Thursday is always a good thing to be able to kind of go, hey, this is what I did last year at Riverdale. Super excited to show new work this year. So just kind of be a bit creative and think about it.
If you want to talk about managing your top 9.
Oh yeah. So managing your top 9 is basically the first nine images that you have on your post. So one of the things is you want to try and first of all, make sure that people don't look at your top 9 and they're not really sure what you do. So you want to make sure obviously that people know that you are an artist, you've got pictures of your art. It's always nice to mix that up with pictures of yourself, maybe in the studio, trying to keep it really relevant. I know that cute dogs do get a lot of exposure on Instagram, but that doesn't really help you in terms of attracting the people that are going to be interested in your art and then kind of continue to follow. So manage it a little bit carefully. The other thing is if you do have a post that you want to put out that is a little bit off brand or something that you think is really relevant, you can post that and you can always go in a few days later or whatever, and you can actually take that off your grid. It will still exist. It just doesn't show up in your top 9 or on your grid. So that's another way of cleaning up your grid every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. And make sure that you've connected your Instagram to your Facebook account because they work together. So one will feed the other. And then Facebook graphics coming soon. If you could connect and share the event. So we'll, if the event's not there yet, I forgot to check today, because I can't remember. If it is, I probably already have shared it, but make sure that you go to the Riverdale ArtWalk site, Facebook page, and share the event.
One of the other things about Facebook is, although you can share your post from Instagram to Facebook, it is also good to post things directly to Facebook. Again, the algorithm rewards you for that. There are definitely audiences who are art lovers who really are not on Instagram. They're just on Facebook. So you don't really want to link. You don't want to lose that opportunity to promote your content. And of course, a lot of people are using TikTok as well. It's great for art since it's so visual. And so something else to consider. And sometimes it's good to be able to leverage those same videos across multiple platforms just to make it a little bit easier. So you're not spending 17 hours a day on Facebook.
Yeah, and there's different apps that you can use to create your videos. For a long time, I was just doing my videos within Instagram. And I have to say, I've been using InShot, and it's working way easier. And then it actually keeps the videos, and I can use them in another source if I want to. So that's just one example of an app. It's called InShot.
And there's a question here about you don't know how to link your account to Facebook. Within your settings within Instagram, it'll ask you whether or not you want to link to your Facebook. So it should be in your settings. And if you Google that, it'll walk you through exactly how it works.
So we also have a couple of marketing packages, like if you're interested in gaining even more exposure through the Artist Network for the shows. We have a couple of, it says 2022 here, but it's their 2023 marketing packages, the same as their 2022 packages, but we've created two options to hopefully work within your budget. And really, package one is $100 per artist, and package two is $275 an artist. And the deadline to sign up is May 6th, so it's just around the corner. It'll be spelt out in the artist handbook, but we can just briefly go through it now. Both of those marketing package options, they both have a maximum amount of people that can participate. So if you are interested, please let us know sooner than later. So there'll be registration forms, and that'll be available probably tomorrow, the next day. So marketing package one is you can upload one image, it's square, and we will drop that into our Instagram stories directly. It'll be in our email blasts, and it'll be part of an Instagram carousel with other artists that promote the show. It's part of the paid Facebook, Instagram ad campaign. So we actually put dollars against it. The dollars that are spent, we directly put them into a paid campaign on the platform. And then marketing package two, we're just looking for a square image and a vertical image, a landscape image, and it's $275. We only have 10 opportunities just because we want to make sure that we profile the artists appropriately. And really, you'll be included in our ad campaign. So we are going to be running digital ads with the Globe and Mail and Blog TO again. So you'll get those impressions. It's a couple of weeks leading up to the event. You're included on these carousels with other artists. I think there'll be 2 campaigns with 5 artists each, and they'll rotate. And you're also given everything in the first package. I should have said that first, but you're also on the carousel at the top of the Riverdale ArtWalk website page. So on the top of our website page, there's images of artists. So it's up here in the very top corner. The images that are in the back of our header on our website page. You would get a profile there, and then be in our ad campaigns. And then you'd also be given an Instagram live interview, 10 to 15 minute interview that we will share and post across our platforms. And you'll also be able to download that and share that and post that as you'll have that for future reference.
And just to let you know, for people that are nervous about doing the live interview, really, it's just about talking about, your process and your inspiration and what you want people to know about your art. So it's not going to be difficult. It's really just kind of having a nice casual conversation. We found even people who are pretty shy really do well in these interviews because they're just like having a chat.
So those are a few opportunities that we have if you're interested. Just one note though, that we are able to, so by signing up and completing a submission and agreeing to be in the show, you agree that your images are what can be used for promotional purposes. We might pull images randomly once in a while and use those images to but also it could end up on our print promotion. So I just wanted to flag that there. If you have any concerns, you need to reach out to us immediately because our creative content is being developed now. And also just to let you know that during the show there's video and footage of booths and artists and on site. And by participating in the show, you consent for images to be able to be used for future promotion throughout the year, but also for the show. Just to let you know, we do have photographers going around and videographers going around.
But of course, our goal is to make you guys look awesome.
Yeah, that's right. We try to look for all these opportunities to help promote the show and the artists. And just if you have additional questions, we still have a lot to go through during this orientation, but this was sent to you, both links for our closed Facebook group and our closed Artist Network member group. And they're both really good resources to connect with other artists who are going to be in the show, maybe artists who have maybe a bit more experience than you, who might be able to answer questions. So I really encourage you to join those groups and post your questions and comments. Logistics. Was there anything from marketing that anybody has questions with, Kate? Let's see.
Just people want to know if the content will be shared.
726.
Sorry, what content?
Will any of this content be shared? i.e., if we see something relevant, can we post on our own social? Absolutely, you can post on your own social. We strongly encourage you to do that. And our goal is to create content that is very easy for you to share and share on your own social.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's great. And just a note in regards to this presentation, it will be saving it down and it'll be up available on our YouTube channel. And there's past orientations and tips and tricks and like, how to rock your booth, like maybe longer orientations on that subject matter that you can just go in and look at other content. You can flip through and speed through areas that aren't relevant and then look at the areas on those orientations that are. So there's a lot on our YouTube channel that might be helpful as well. All right, so we're going to move into some logistics. So just to start off on some obligations from the artist perspective, just a few reminders that we do have a code of conduct, and we really do want to emphasize that. We're just going to say, everybody, please be nice. Everybody's under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and load in and move in can be stressful for people. And we recognize that. We want you to have a great time. We want you to be able to do well, but please be patient. And we also ask that really, there's really no condition where you should be loading out early, that you should be closing up your booth, packing up your art at any time before close of show. So that means 6 p.m. You shouldn't have packaging in your booth. You shouldn't be taking art down from your walls. You shouldn't be doing that. Participating in that manner and shutting down your booth affects your neighbors and affects the energy in the entire park. And if you participate in that manner, you may be prohibited from being in future shows. Booth and tent display, really we recommend white walls, and we can talk a little bit more about some of that detail later, but really the most important thing is that the booths must be weighed down properly at all times. We've had tents roll over across onto Queen Street. It can be windy, it can be gusty. The weather is unpredictable. As we know, we've had beautiful sunny weather last weekend, and then we had snow 2 days later in Toronto. And that's just the weather we have in Ontario. So even though this is in June, we are hoping for really great weather, but sometimes it's not great weather. This is a rain or sunshine show, and we need you to be there and be sparkly throughout the show. I think those are the really big important things. Kate, did I miss anything here?
Yeah, no, just a couple of things. There was a little bit of clarification. Basically, your tents can stay up overnight, but the art will come out of the show all night. So that's kind of what we mean with the booth having to be up all the time. The other thing is that there are often times when we have had pretty crazy weather. And it doesn't mean that people will stay away. People still come out, they still buy art. And so it's really is important to keep your spirits up. That also goes around with not only just being nice, but like Angela said, you really need to stay sparkly. One of the things that can be a bit of a death knell for a show is if artists start to complain among themselves about how horrible it is and the weather's terrible and that dog peed on my tent, which is all horrible things. But, that energy starts to permeate the show and other people pick up on it. So as much as possible, keep up a positive attitude and a good face. And, if you see your fellow artists need a little bit of a hug and a positive comment, then please do that.
Yeah, so here's a little bit more about the criteria for the show. So it is a fine art only show. So just a reminder that we understand that a lot of artists have functional work as well, but you cannot be displaying functional work and selling functional work in your booth. And that's like pillows, leggings, all that stuff is not accepted in our show. One of the things that we do allow you to do is have some reproductions of non-photographic work. So yes, you can have a little bit of that. So it's a very small percentage of your booth space where you can have that. And it's a maximum of 50% of your booth.
That's
So
15.
15, yeah. So approximately half a wall, and a half a wall is not actually that much space. So if you are planning on bringing reproductions, you can only have one image of a reproduction. We don't want it to look like, we don't want the show to look like you have like 5 of one image and they're all on the wall and here's all the different sizes you can get it. You should just really display one image of reproduction and a maximum of 15. I wouldn't even recommend 15% of your booth, but that's a maximum. So you're not able to have like any display piece that's outside of your 10 by 10 space. So we've had in the past some challenges with some people who've brought like these round display units. If you have something like that, you can't sit it outside of your booth. It needs to be inside your booth. You have a 10 by 10 foot area. And when you put those outside of your booth, you're encroaching on your neighbor. You're encroaching on the view lines and the sight lines going into your neighbor's booth. And so we really ask you to be conscious and think about your neighbors. If you wouldn't want somebody putting something in front of your booth like that, you're not going to put that in front of somebody else's booth. Just please be respectful of everybody so everybody has an awesome show.
A quick question. Somebody wanted to know whether or not you can have like note cards as part of your 15%.
Yes. So we do allow note cards, and those can be shown in multiples because they'll probably be stacked and put together. And again, a very small area of your booth.
Yeah. And your chair, technically, I think that's one of those things where your chair can be outside your booth. Often what people do is they'll actually put their chair under a tree or something that's kind of quite a bit away from your booth. One of the things you want to do within your booth is to try and make it as easy as possible for the customers to walk through it without feeling trapped. And so therefore would not advise putting a table at the front of the booth and to sort of make it feel like they've got enough ability and time to look at the work without having to come across the artist sitting on the chair or the dog in the booth or things like that. Just try and keep it clean.
Yeah, so we're going to talk in detail about that in a little bit. But the one point in regards to the chair, when Kate says outside of your booth, you can't have it sticking outside the front of your booth. So you can have it at the pond of your booth or in an area that's like an open area, like, 10 feet away from your booth, you can stick a chair and sit there under a tree, so long as it's not blocking any view into another booth or in front of another booth. We don't want your chair sticking out of your booth at the front, and we don't want your table sticking out of the front of your booth. Like you can't do that. We'll ask you to pull it in. All right, so let's move along here. So again, the code of conduct is be nice, be nice, be nice, be nice. Or it will affect your ability to be in future shows.
And we understand that things happen and people get stressed and frustrated. It's just that I appreciate too that the people that are working on your behalf to make the Riverdale Art Walk happen have put in a bazillion hours before you even get there. So just please be very respectful.
So key dates, payment is due in a couple of days, the 21st. I don't know what the date is today, but it's due in a couple of days.
19th.
Yeah, so there might have been a little bit of confusion on that. We were going to do like a partial payment, but we just moved them into two because they're a couple weeks apart. So from an administrative perspective, it made sense. And our jurors just took a little bit longer than we were hoping. So all that's come through very quickly, and it's all due in a couple of days. If you have any issues, please reach out to Barb at artistnetwork.ca. Contracts will be due. I'm going to send them to you shortly, and they're due in a week or so. The anniversary show, the deadline again for submitting for that is May 1st. your attend, if you have any rentals, we partner with a company called AER. That's all due on May 26th. May 17th is the celebration show. It starts May 17th and runs through this show to June 4th. And then June 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. is the closing celebration, and it's also our meet and greet. So we have an opening for that show, but we, like I said before, we also have a closing, and that we're going to use as a meet and greet. We used to have those parties long ago where we'd meet the artists before the show, and we'd all celebrate and get excited about the show together. So that's going to be at the Leslie Grove Gallery at the closing celebration. And then one of the things that we're going to talk about shortly, but the optional tent and grid load-in is the day before the event. And as you all know, the show runs June 3rd, 4th, rain or shine, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Travel. So some of the things that you want to be thinking about is road closures and to plan your route. So Toronto actually has a website where they actually list all the expected road closures. So I don't know, everybody's coming from all different areas and they all have different routes, but I would ask you to take a look at that, depending on other events that are happening and even something that can happen very quickly. Just double check any road closures beforehand. This is what our site map will look something like this. Jimmy Simpson Park is this green area here. There's a hockey place here, and this is Jimmy Simpson Recreation Center right here. And we tend to line up our booths this way. This is Queen Street and Booth Avenue. The Artist Network booth will be down here. So that's where you're going to come. That's where you're going to drop off your I Gave Art. You're going to come check out the Artist Network booth, have any of your questions answered, and do your check-in. And then the booths run along Queen Street, but then up and around in rows. The Artist Network booth, just like I said, is the place to come for assistance and any help that you might need during the show. It's where you're going to check in and get your artist handbook. Your artist booklet, which has your sign and all the other information. If you're in the I Gave Art, it'll have a few things like that. It's our information. It acts as our first aid. It acts as our donation and ballot area, our lost and found, and our volunteer check-in. Like I said, we don't expect any COVID restrictions.
Woo woo.
Yay. Kate, I think someone's in the waiting room. Load in and load out. It runs as well as it can. That we have a lot of artists trying to get into the park in a very short time. One of the things that we try to do to offset that challenge is to offer optional Friday night tent and grid only load in, which means for some people they might be doing 2 car loads into the city. But if you have your own tent, some people, like if you want to come in and set up your tent Friday night and maybe drop in your grids or your walls and things like that, you can do that Friday night. Again, we don't obviously recommend that you put any art in your booth at that point, because we have security overnight, but they can't be all places all the time, and anything left in your tent is at your own risk. But we really don't recommend that. So you can drop off your tents and your grids Friday night after the majority of AER's rentals go up. Saturday and Sunday follow the same schedule. You'll get a schedule. It'll give you a location. So either, if I go back to the map here, oops, where's my map? This map, it'll either be on this Booth Avenue along here, where I'll ask you to pull up, or along Queen Street here. And we do the schedule from the back of the park to the front center of the park, so that hopefully if you're loading in here, you're not having to go around all these booths here and then go down to your booth. So we load in centrally and from the rear of the park first. And along Queen Street. And the only thing I can really say is, please do not block any places where you can't stop. So TTC, you cannot pull your car up in there. Do not block the crosswalk right over here by the TTC here. There's a crosswalk right beside it. Please don't block that. You'll get ticketed. So we apply for permits for that, for the offloading. And because of that, the city knows that we're offloading and that there's going to be a lot of people there, which means the ticket people come out right away and they will ticket you very, very quickly.
I just want to say to people, we're going to talk about tent rentals, weights, all that kind of stuff. Just it's coming.
Okay, so the way that we do our load in and load in is that you're given not only which street to load in and load out of, but a specific time. So it's a 50-minute schedule. So what we ask artists to do is, first of all, be patient, pull up to the curb. We'll have volunteers along both streets. And your goal is to unload your car as quickly as you can. So you're going to unload at the curb, like just on the grass on the other side of the sidewalk. You're going to unload into an area. You're going to unload all your stuff from your car. Then you're going to go back to your car, and you're going to park your car. Once you've parked, you're going to walk back, and then you're going to move your stuff from that load drop zone to your booth. So you're not going to be going from your car to your booth. You can't drive on the park property like you can in some parks. We can't do that in this park. So you have to unload off the curbside there. And so, as you can imagine, we ask you to adhere as closely as possible to your schedule. And the reason we do that is because the first thing the volunteers are going to ask you is, what's your timeline? What's your booth number? And they have a schedule there. And if you're there too early, and it's busy, they're going to ask you just to do a few laps, or like just wait somewhere else and then come back. And the reason we do that is because there's going to be a lot of cars waiting for your spot. So we ask you to just try to be respectful of the other artists and try to move your stuff as quickly as possible. Please don't leave your vehicle unattended at any time. You'll get ticketed. And even if you are attending your vehicle and you're standing right there and you're on the crosswalk, we've had somebody get a ticket before. So please don't do that. We really want you to have as easy of a move in as possible, but just be aware that those things can happen. Loadout, there's no schedule on loadout on the final day, or even if you're packing up your art, it's way too difficult to coordinate. So you're just going to pull up into those same areas and you're going to load up your car. We do have some storage on site as well.
And we ask if you have something specific, like if you have a specific challenge that you think might be an issue, as a huge trailer or something like that, the best thing is just to reach out to Angela, and she will kind of help you try and figure out the best options for load-ins.
So check in once you're on site. Once you've got your stuff to your booth, we're going to ask you not to check into the Artist Network booth before 9:30. Most of our load-in will be done at that point. Well, all of it will be done at that point. Everybody will be in their booths and setting up their booths.
You see,
Sorry, is there a question, Kate?
No, it was just I just muted them.
Okay. So we're going to ask you to please don't come. So all our volunteers are going to be pretty busy until 9:30 as well. We're going to be busy in our booth getting organized and helping our volunteers and placing them. So after 9:30, you can check in. So you're going to register you're going to get your artist package, has your booths on, your name tags, a few copies of the event map, and an I gave art sign for those people who generously donated art. And then you can also, at that time, you can drop off work for the gallery wall. So what we're actually going to do is, in the past, we've had the back wall of the actual Artist Network booth, which faces Queen Street, a place where anybody can post a piece of art. So we're going to ask you to keep that as close to 12 inches by 12 inches as possible. Really, it's just a gallery presentation of all artists in the park. So it allows visitors of the park to be able to get a feeling and view artists who are maybe like not right by the Artist Network booth. So we encourage you to participate in that. We'll have tags for you and your booth number, so your name and your booth number, so you can attach that by your art piece. We're going to ask you to hang that on the grid yourself with help from a volunteer, and we're going to ask you to come back daily to pick that up. So on Saturday night, you're going to come pick that back up and pack that up with the rest of your art. And then on Sunday, you can bring it back and hang it back up again. And then obviously on Sunday at the end of the show, please remember to pick up your art. We've had people leave them before, and I'm like, oh, what art do I get to take home today?
Just a clarification for the booth sign. There will be a laminated booth sign that will be in your artist package, which you can put on your tent, and that will allow people to know where you're located. That will correspond with the parking map, or with the map, as well as with the gallery wall. But it does not specifically have your branding on it. So we do recommend you have your own booth sign that will have your name on it, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And so you can also drop off any donations for the I Gave art at the Artist Network booth. And we're going to post those and hang those on a fence. We might not right beside here, but in the booth, or depending on the weather, or outside of the booth with a table for ballots. Parking. Parking is sometimes a challenge, but there are a few green P parkings, Dundas and Carlaw, Logan and Queen, Broadview north of Queen. And there's street parking where you can find it. If you're lucky, you'll find some street parking. If you have any questions about that, I would just do your research ahead of time, but these are the green P parkings that are in the area.
And they do ticket. So
Yeah.
you know, do make sure you park somewhere that's legally. I personally recommend getting the Green P parking app, and that way you can kind of keep track of it on your phone.
Overnight storage, to be confirmed, I'm 99.9% sure that we have overnight storage in Jimmy Simpson Community Center again. For those who participated last year, we were able to use the community center. We're not having an indoor portion this year of the show. So we are able to use that space for storage. So it's quite a bit of space. So even though we say storage for large and heavy artwork overnight, we just want you to be respectful. So the one thing I will point out is there's not a lot of wall space because they have a lot of equipment within that space. And so you won't necessarily have a wall to hang your stuff. So have bins or boxes or whatever is the best. If you have your wagon or whatever, and you have your art on that and you pull that in there, that works really, really well. The one thing I'd say is please be patient because there's just the 2 doors into that space where you're going to be going in and out. And we only have a very short time at the end of show and the beginning of show to open that up and have access to it. So I think it's only open for like half an hour after show closing or an hour after show closing. So prioritize getting your big pieces that you can't take home in there as you're wrapping up and packing up your booth.
And that door is only 30 inches wide, so you can't put a whole bunch of stuff on a cart and expect to take it through if your pieces are 40 or 48 inches wide. So just be
Yeah, that's
aware of
right.
that as well as you're moving in.
Yeah, so it looks like it's a double door, but there's actually a metal bar from in the middle of the 2 doors. So you can't, it's not that wide. Good point, Kate. Security, I think I mentioned this, but there is security overnight, both nights, Friday night and Saturday night. They can't be everywhere. So it's really at your own risk if you leave anything in your booth. So please consider that. We really recommend you take your art out of your booth at night.
We do recommend though that you can leave your tables and your chairs and things like that within the booth.
Yeah, some people even tie those down. They zip tie them in the booth and they pack them up in some. So just consider what you're leaving in. Washrooms, just to double check. I just want to really make sure people understand the washrooms, because what happens at the end of the show is people are just like, oh my goodness, the washrooms are closed. The washrooms are closed. So there will probably be porta potties on site. There may not be. We're hoping not to have to extend porta potties, a whole bunch of them at the back of the park, but washrooms will be open from 9 a.m. and to 7 p.m. on Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 6:30 on Sunday. So half an hour after show closing, which means your booth won't be packed up. So you might want to consider that. Hop over to the washrooms ahead of time. And I'd say even if we do have porta potties on site, I'd really recommend all the artists use the washrooms indoors. They're way cleaner and they're well maintained. So because the porta potties are really hard to keep clean all day long at a big event like this. Food and beverage, plan ahead, pack for the day. There's lots of great restaurants in the area. Maybe you can work with your neighbors if you have to pop out. We do have volunteers on site, but their job is not to sit in your booth for half an hour while you're grabbing lunch. They're going to be moving from booth to booth to booth for 10 or 15 minutes. It's really like washroom breaks and to give you a break if you need to get out of your booth for a minute and grab another piece of art or packaging and things like that. There's our lovely volunteers from last year. At one point, we might have this many volunteers on site. It seems like a lot, but there's points when we have a lot of volunteers and points when we don't have a lot of volunteers. So if you do need a volunteer and you haven't, maybe just ask your neighbor to watch your booth really quickly and then run over to the Artist Network booth. They'll be wandering around asking, do you need anybody to watch your booth? Do you need to pop out to get anything? Do you need a little break, right? But after being in your booth for 10 or 15 or like maybe 15 minutes, you should really be back at that point. It's really not meant for, they're not really meant to sit in your booth for an hour or something.
The other thing too is that, you know, people come to these art shows to meet the artists, and even if the volunteers are wonderful, they're never going to be able to sell your work the same way you are. So it's a lost opportunity if you spend too much time away from your booth.
We have a few sponsors, AER and Above Ground. We do Artist Awards. We're hoping to do that again this year with the support from Above Ground in different medium, and then AER supports us by trying to give us the best price possible for our artists, as well as helps us put on a great show.
For our tent rentals.
Booth logistics. So here's our rentals. So again, it's AER, and there's the prices for the year. I'll be sending that off to people probably tomorrow morning. So make sure that you safe send the Eventany email, because that's where you'll be getting your rental forms from, as well as your contracts.
A couple quick questions someone had is whether or not if you rent a tent, does it come with weights?
Yes. So if you're renting a tent, it comes with weights, and I'll just show you the tent here. Oh, it's really blurry, but anyway, it's a 10 by 10 pop-up canvas. I don't think they actually this year, they didn't have them last year, had the ones that are 100% waterproof. So these are not waterproof by any means. They're water resistant, right? It is a canvas product. They are freestanding, but they come with weights if you've rented a tent. And all cargoes will put up that tent, and they'll bring the rental weights there. And if you have fencing, they'll probably tie the fencing onto the tent, because that acts as a weight as well for the tent. They also rent grids. So the grids look like this, these black grids. You may not want to hang them horizontally. You may put them vertically. There's all different ways to do that, but it's not their job to hang those grids up. They would have no idea how you want those grids hung. None. People have all different configurations of hanging those grids. It's your responsibility to have the material to hang those grids and to hang those grids yourself. Our volunteers aren't there to hang your grids. You really need to be self-sufficient and get the help. Make sure you have support on site if you need it, if you can't do that yourself. Often other neighboring artists can help you pop up a tent or pop up a grid or hold something, but it's not really anybody's job but your own to actually support and promote or to present your space in the booth. We've had challenges in the past with artists who thought that it was the all cargos team's responsibility, and it's not. It's in their contract, and they wouldn't even know how to hang that. If you let them know ahead of time of where you want the fencing, because lots of people don't rent 3 fence, you might just have 1. Do you want it at the back of the booth, on the left side of your booth, or the right? That you'll have to talk to them. The relationship between AER rentals is your relationship with them. We don't get involved in that relationship. We're not doing the rentals, and we're not really part of that. So it's very difficult for us, other than to kind of like find someone who can help you. It's not really our relationship. So please don't send your rental contracts to me. I'll double check. What I will do before the show is I get a whole list of all the rental contracts and a spreadsheet, and I ask you guys to double check that you show up. If you've done a rental and your understanding is that you've ordered something, that you show up on the list. We've had people before think they've sent something through, but they haven't. And if you haven't paid for something, you haven't rented it.
So just to add a couple of things too, just a few tips, because I have my own tent, but I really hate schlepping the weights. So I actually just rent the weights from All Cargo. So that's kind of one thing to think about. There was also a question too about whether or not you can bring something for the ground cover or whatever in your tent. You can. We don't have a rule that says you can't. The thing is, you have to remember that you are in a park, and even if it's lovely weather, there's still dew. The grass gets wet. Whatever you have on your floor is probably going to get muddy and dirty and stuff like that. So just consider that. Most of the ground is grass. There is a small area that's on the concrete, and that's where the basketball courts are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to put a rug down, by all means, you can put a little rug down there, especially if you're on the concrete. But most people, I'd say I hardly ever see anybody put anything down, right? Yeah. In the booth. Kate, do you? Right.
Very few. I mean, I know a few people that have the first year they do it, and then they're like, oh my God, my beautiful sisal rug is completely gross now. So the other thing too is that what Angela's just shown you are the things that are available for rent. There's been a couple of questions about mesh sidewalls. You're absolutely allowed to use mesh sidewalls. Angela's going to go through right now the 400,000 different ways that you can hang your art. And there's lots of options depending on your level of creativity. And we just want to make sure that your art looks good. This is just for the rental pieces of it. So we'll go through that in a few minutes.
Yeah. So they do have like somebody also thought the rental company was going to give them hooks, but you have to rent that if you want them. And I would say that's something you can buy at a hardware store, or you can buy it online. Just prep ahead of time. They do have display grids, but they also have like tables and chairs and stuff like that. So you'll get this form tomorrow and tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to look at that and see what you think you might need to rent. All right, planning your booth. Kate, do you want to chat a little bit about this?
Sure. So one of the things that's really important is to kind of think about your booth space as being your little mini art gallery. So you want it to be a good representation of the work. You want to make sure you have sizes that are going to be available for as many people's budgets as possible. So a really nice large piece at the back or a dramatic triptych or something is always really important to draw people in. And then you're going to want to have different sizes that will fit different budgets. The one thing that we see the most often especially for artists who are new at doing art shows, is they just cram way too many things in their booth. And it makes it very difficult for people to actually be able to isolate the piece that they like. So what I like to do is do this planning your booth in an Excel spreadsheet. 1 square equals 1 foot. I can do it in the proper sizes. Those are the actual paintings. Well, this is very old now, but these were the actual paintings I was looking to put into the booth that are the right size. I can see how the things go together. I can mix and match things to make sure that I have what I need. It's always good practice to have duplicate sizes. So I will personally try and have only a few different sizes, and then I will have duplicates in that same size. So if you sell something, you can basically put something up to replace it. But you don't really need a duplicate for every single thing that's in the booth. Typically, that's a lot of extra work, and you're going to have challenges trying to figure out where to store that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there isn't storage of work or storage of anything during the day. So I just want to clarify, there's overnight storage, but during the day that Jimmy Simpson Park Community Center gets used, there's all programs running. So we can't use that space. You can't keep your stuff in there. It has to come out. Like, you have to take it out before the show starts.
So for small pieces, you can put them in baskets or plastic booths or something under your table. For larger pieces, you can put them in your car. But really think about, be like Coco Chanel, get dressed for the evening and then take one piece out. Like, just really try and keep it a little bit more minimal. It's better to go minimal than overhang it. That said, you want to make sure you have enough pieces in there that you can actually provide opportunities and make some money.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use 3 walls, all 3 walls on the inside. And depending on where your tent is located, you may have an external wall.
Yes, correct. And sometimes there might be like a foot or 2 behind your booth, depending on where the trees are and things like that. So you can put a bin there or something, but in a lot of cases there isn't. So just think about that. Think about how you can best manage the material for yourself in your booth.
Yeah. So one of the things, again, is this is about planning your booth configuration. There are a lot of people I know, if this is their very first show, and they're buying their own tent, they'll actually literally set the tent up, make sure they know how to set it up, make sure they have all the pieces, and actually hang some things as a test before you actually do the actual event. One of the things that's really important is if you are renting a tent, or if you have a tent that's not waterproof, because most of them are not, is it's always good to have maybe a white tarp on hand in case you need to pin that down. But for sure, bring plastic sheeting. I usually use like inexpensive drop cloths. So if it starts to rain, you can very easily tie these to the outside of your tent and protect the work that's inside. Make sure you kind of consider your chairs and tables, making sure you're not creating barriers, but you have a place to put your ballot box and your sign in for your database, for your newsletter, your business cards, your postcards, things like that. Just make sure you're ready for any and all kind of weather. Bring some sort of packaging to protect your work. And also, if you sell something, to make sure you got something there you can actually give it to the client in. And bring enough work to replace some sold pieces, but just, again, don't go kind of overboard. If you have your own tent, it is not a prerequisite at Riverdale, although it is at ArtWalk in the Square. We recommend a white tent. The art looks much better with darker tents. It casts the light across all of your art, and it's not really the best vehicle to sell your work in.
And here's just a few examples of how to hang work on the grids. One thing Kate was talking a little bit about is being prepared for rain, like having these plastic drop sheets that you can, pin up along your wall, or just cover your table quickly or your art quickly, and having a thing. But another thing is to use these noodles, these pool noodles, to help put pressure on the tent. So if you look at this booth here, Kate, I'm going to look at your old booth.
Yeah.
But you can see how it sags here. here's my new booth, and here's Kate's old booth. But you can see if you had those pool noodles putting pressure here, it would help instead of the water. If it is going to rain, it's not going to pool in here and create an issue. I've seen tents entirely crumble because of the weight of the water that happens at night, or the wind pick up a booth. So if it is calling for bad weather, I've actually rolled up my walls and dropped my tent halfway. I've also made sure that I had pool noodles or hula hoops on the corners to help push the wall the roof up so that it's as taut as possible. If that,
Yeah, the pool noodles are critical. Like, we're not trying to scare you about tents collapsing, but invariably, if you do a few preparatory things to make sure that you prepare yourself for rain, put the pool noodles in, make sure the water can't pool and create too much weight on the roof, then you will likely be fine.
and hopefully it doesn't call for any rain at all that weekend, and we don't have to worry about it.
We'll have to worry about heat. That would be awesome.
Yeah, so here's just some black grids. You can actually, some people hang them vertically, some people horizontally. You can see here, the benefit of that is that the weight of the grid is actually on the ground. And so there's less weight on your tent structure. So depending on the kind of booth you have, and if it's a steel structure or aluminum, that actually can create challenges. So this is just a few. I'm just going to scroll through some images here really quickly of different ways that people have set up their booth. I'm going to sneeze, Kate. I'm going to mute myself.
So these are some other kind of grids hung sideways. You do have to be a little bit careful about this. Those grids are pretty heavy, and if you have heavy work on top of them, that also can collapse your tent if it's aluminum tent versus a steel tent. So we kind of recommend maybe not doing that.
Yeah, and even if you hang some vertically and some horizontally, people do that. They do pathways so the air flows through their booth. And here is used changed. And again, you can see the pool noodles. Here's the fencing. You can see the fencing. The fencing is only 6 feet tall. So consider that when you're hanging your art as well. Some people have white grids.
You can buy those from, I think it's a company called Kinlao. They used to sell white grids if you're looking for the white grids instead of the black. Of course, it camouflages with your tent a little bit better.
Some people just use grids from, I think this is from like floor or like from Home Depot. It's like just a very simple grid.
I think it's like rebar or something.
Yeah, it's like a rebar. And then there's the beautiful white cloth mesh walls. Flourish makes them. But you can see Karen has one here and David has his here. They have really, really small mesh, and you can put you can really manage your booth quite nicely. Those you'd have to see if you could, if you don't have them, I don't know if you could still buy them now and get them in time, because it's a US company. I think you might be able to, but the company is Flourish, right, Kate?
I just put the link in the chat.
Okay, awesome. And they're awesome. They're great walls. It's definitely an investment. And Kate, I think you said that there is a Canadian company that's looking at producing those.
I heard there was. I was not able to find one because I was trying to see if I could find that Canadian company. So
Yeah.
I know the other thing is that you can also create your own by using, there's just like a stretchy sailcloth you can buy at Home Depot.
Yeah, Lisa did that. And you can also, for those, I don't know if you can see this, but this is boards. So they're just boards that are painted white. And then Paul creates these like 45-degree angle cuts in the, I think they're 2x4s. And then he has his work wired and he just hangs it on that. So there's lots of different ways to display and hang your work. Here again is wood that somebody's used to actually hang their art. So they're just small, very small things they can take into their booth. So they're not carrying these really heavy grids. Here's a wood one, so you can actually see it a little bit better. But they're just wood pieces that are probably drilled at the top and zip tied to their tent. And then they've got all these lines here so that you can actually hang different pieces of work on it. Here's a close-up. You can see they're just little notches. There's quite a few people who have done that in the past. Some people just do like a V, like two together, and then they hang all their work. It works quite well. These are those metal, they're like little metal ones from, I think, again, Home Depot sells them, that people screw to the walls, and this person just used these metal ones and put their hooks right on there. It worked for them. So
So
lots of different.
that's not one quick thing too, though, is that if you're gonna do something like that, where you're gonna use those metal things, I think those are designed for actually hanging shelves. Do make sure you test to make sure that the hooks fit in that structure, because especially if you're doing something like some of these flourish walls require very tiny hooks. Some of the grids actually require larger hooks, so test it out.
Yeah, make sure you test out how the things that you're going to use again. And this is just chains, the old traditional way of hanging things on chains. Sometimes I find that moves a lot, but some people it works really well for their work. It's definitely easy to take to a show.
Yep.
Here again, somebody's used some mesh that they've created things. They put like wood piece on the bottom, and here Felicity's done this soft fencing. And she just rolls it up and just attaches it to the top of the booth. So depending on what your capabilities are in regard moving heavy objects and stuff like that, that's just something to consider.
So I just have in the chat here, apparently the Canadian company called Surf and Turf, who also produces tents, is developing the mesh walls. So it doesn't look like, looks like people are waiting on delivery. So we don't yet know what the quality of that is, but that would certainly be pretty good for all of us.
Mm-hmm. And if you have sculptural work, again, think about your display tables. Make sure you take stuff that can level out your tables. The ground's not always level. Well, it's hardly ever
It's
level.
never level. It's grass. It's a park.
And this is glass that, so you just really want to be careful with that and plan. And then there's all different kinds of options, creative ways that people use to hang stuff. So that's just a few slides on that. Another creative way to hang pieces. This person has like entire pieces of wood where they just drill holes in and hang up their work. They probably have a pretty big truck. Yeah, again here, Lauren uses sheets of wood and has all screws all over them and hangs up her pieces. And this is beautiful. She actually brings in wood and she actually paints it blue and makes like a home environment. This is an outdoor show. Think about how you're hanging individual pieces of art as well. So you have to think about what's easy to hang. Oh, I don't know why my thing's marking.
Karen is editing our screen.
I don't know. I'm not even touching my computer. Anyway, think about your D-rings, and it's sometimes really hard if your work's just wired at the back to kind of like be able to go in and like put the S hook and hang it on the fencing and the grid. Sometimes it's nice to put these, this is what I do, and I think a lot of other people do it, these temporary D-rings right at the top of the piece. If it's like a wood substrate that you can actually just screw in some temporary D-rings, and it's very easy to hook in and move stuff. And then when you sell the work, you just take those off. So I think
just make sure you have a little screwdriver handy to take those off.
Yeah, make sure you pack your tools. Just reusable ties. There's lots of different things out there. Again, this is just mesh fencing that somebody put in their booth, and there's actually reusable lockable zip ties if you don't want to cut them up and throw them in the garbage. Then you have to also think about how you actually put up your tags, like hang up your tags for like pricing and information about your art. Some people use name tags. Some people have used these like little hooks. I think they're curtain hooks.
Yeah, they're like, seamstress hooks, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use actually, there's something you can get that are designed for if you're in a cubicle that has the like almost like the fabric cloth, then they can actually tuck into if you have a fabric mesh walls or something like that, you can use those, which is really handy too.
Yeah, I have the same. I bought them online, right, Kate? We bought them online.
Yeah. Amazon, I think.
Yeah. And then here's a company that it makes pretty good steel frame tents. Like people always ask us what's a good place to buy a tent. Caravan Canopy is a local company that does a pretty good job. I've bought bags there too. If you have a tent already, you don't have a bag, you can buy a bag there. They have all different kinds of tents that you can kind of customize exactly what you're going to buy. I would say if you don't have a tent and you're going to buy one, I would definitely buy a steel frame versus an aluminum frame. It's heavier. But Kate, did you buy aluminum frame last?
No, I always buy a steel frame. And I guess the other thing too is that Surf and Turf, I believe, does aluminum frames, but they do the octagon, so they're a little bit heavier than the square frame. So I think you have to kind of take a look at what you want to do. Aluminum is lighter, steel is just stronger.
Yeah. So the octagon. So she's talking about the actual posts that are holding up the tent. Some of them are square and some of them are octagon shaped. So the octagon's a bit stronger, even if it's aluminum, but we really recommend the steel frame tents if you can lift it. pool noodles or hula hoops. There we go. We already talked about that. Prepare for rain. And now just a little bit about some tips for when you're in your booth, things you might need to know. So we will have a suggested packing list and a show tips like handouts that will be in the artist handbook as well. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So one of the things is really consider being on site. When you're on site, you're going to be in your tent. You're a little bit trapped inside your tent for most of the time, especially if it's busy. So we certainly hope it is. So make sure you have potentially someone who can maybe relieve you for a little bit. Someone else said that their friends and family are going to come with them to be on site to help them out. But just caution that having one friend to partner off while you're off going to the washroom or having a break is awesome. Having 15 people of your family members in your tent is not awesome. One of the things that is a bit of a challenge sometimes, especially for people doing a show for the first time, is all their friends and family want to come out and support them, which is really great, but not if they stand in a clump right in front of your tent and don't allow customers in. So just be kind of a little bit aware of that, of how you manage the expectations of the people that are going to come and help you out. We have limited staff and volunteers to help, and so try and be as reliable as you can yourself. But the other thing is that you have there's an opportunity for you to really build your connections with the artist community. So make sure get to know your neighbors, and they will be certainly happy to keep an eye on your tent if you have to step away. I always bring money for food and drinks, but if it's busy, I also make sure I have snacks that I can grab. I know Angela always has the electrolyte tablets in water. It's good to stay hydrated. Grab something that's easy to grab, grapes or carrot sticks or nuts or something that will give you a little bit of a protein boost, but it's easy to just grab and eat on the way if you don't have time to go and get something formal. Certainly, if you're going to bring a sandwich or something, that's great. We recommend that you maybe want to step outside of your booth to eat that. Make sure you have a hat and a sunblock, a phone. It's always good to have a battery recharger in case your phone dies, especially since if you're doing payments, your phone really needs to be up and running. And clothing for all weather personnel possibilities. What I often will do is I'll wear something comfortable and scungy while I'm loading in. And then I go and quickly change into something a little bit nicer when I'm actually going to do the show.
Yeah, and layer.
Yeah.
So, last year was kind of odd because it was quite cold. We did the third weekend in June, and it ended up being quite a cold week. There's quite a bit of shade in that park. They haven't been pruning the trees back very well. And so you just want to really consider, like, you might think it's just going to be a beautiful weekend and it's been warm, but when you're standing in the shade, you can get quite cold. So make sure that you take layers, like a sweater or like a jacket or something that you can layer up.
Yeah. The other thing too is I find for women, if you want to keep a purse too, like again, there's not a lot of places to put a big purse, and it's vulnerable for stealing. So one of the things I like to do is get like a really, a small purse that goes over your shoulder or whatever, and you can just keeps your phone, your keys, a little bit of money, maybe a credit card. Really pare that down and try and keep that with you at all times.
Yeah, leave the rest at home. Yeah.
So tips really for selling. We obviously want everybody to sell when they come to the Riverdale Art Walk. That's our goal. We try hard to prepare you guys to do it. And there's a couple of things that are really required. Regardless of what's happening, you need to keep a positive attitude. People don't know what's going on. And I think that so often I've seen this where the attitude of the artist kind of scares people off, and then nobody comes into the booth, and then the artist complains there's no one in the booth. So that's a little bit of a vicious cycle. So really try and stay positive. Be willing to engage with people. I appreciate that is much easier for some people than others. So if it's your first time and you're nervous about that, then I would suggest maybe trying a couple of open-ended questions before you go. Things like, are you looking for anything today? Are you enjoying the show? Can I tell you about the work? And then it's classic public relations tip is regardless of what they ask, you tell them what you want them to know, which would be about your inspiration, about your process. Try and build that personal connection with that person, with the client, and they're much more likely to buy. Bring your best work. It's an outdoor show. Doesn't mean it's a substandard show. We definitely get collectors at this show who fly in from Halifax, who buy big pieces for their gorgeous homes. So bring good work that you are proud of, that when you stand in front of that work, the people that come into your tent know that you're super proud of the work that's there. Recognize also that no matter how amazing your art is, it is not for everybody. There will be people that will walk by not at all interested. There are other people that will come into your booth and they will love what you do and hate your neighbor's work. That's just the way it goes. It's very subjective. And I know it's hard, but try and really stay a little bit above all of that and try and not to take it personally if people don't like the work. It doesn't require thousands of people. It just requires the right people to come in and take the work and bring it to their home.
That's right. And often some of that stuff doesn't even happen at the show. People might have just walked by your booth or whatever and picked up a card really quickly, and they might contact you later. Like, you just don't know where sales, if you're really looking at sales, is your objective isn't always just selling at a show. It's also building your network, and sometimes relationships take time to develop. So sometimes I'd say a huge percentage actually of people sell post-show. Kate,
Yeah.
would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think especially if this is your very first show, people don't know you. You're an unknown quantity, which means that there are some people that are a little bit more tentative and they want to see you in a couple of shows. They want to see the work around before they sell. So every single conversation you have at Riverdale is a conversation that could lead to a sale down the path. So keep that in mind and try not to judge whether or not you think people are going to be buyers based on what they're wearing or things like that.
Yeah.
It is a public park, and a lot of people kind of wander through there and they're, scungy clothes, and they've got the money to buy your art and they're interested in your art. So don't make that mistake.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know where, like Kate said, they might have to see you at a couple shows and they might have to see you for a while. So they might see you at Riverdale, and then maybe you're in 2 other shows this summer and they buy at the end of the summer. Right.
Yeah.
But they might not have bought that then if they didn't see it at Riverdale. So I think you just really need to stay positive and know that this is you're building your relationship with your client base.
And have fun. I mean, get to know your neighbors and have a good time. Put your bio on the wall, include what makes you interesting and what might be a differentiator for you.
Yeah. So
it's important to have, sorry?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Important to have your story. And that story is really, again, how people connect to you. Like if you are a person that loves to paint scenes of the ocean and waves, and maybe you have a great story about surfing or something. Like, those stories are things that allow you to connect. Do make sure, and I'll tell you this from an extrovert point of view, that you don't overtalk. Like, let your client share his stories with you. That will allow them to feel like they've got a better connection with you. Decide on a courteous out for people that want to grill you about your technique. So there will be artists that will attend the show who want to know exactly how you did something and why you did it and how to get into the show. And it's wonderful. And I strongly encourage artists to support artists. But some artists are not always aware that you've got other people in the booth that may want to be interested in your art who may want to purchase it. It's not the time for you to have a conversation with an artist about process. One of the best things you can do is to hand them an Artist Network postcard and say, if you want to build your art career, join the Artist Network, and all of those questions can be answered.
Yeah, and you can direct them to the Artist Network booth. Say there's a booth here.
Yeah.
You want to talk to the Artist Network about that, right?
Absolutely. There are certainly people that will want to take photographs. You have to decide whether or not you're comfortable with that or not. It's best to think about that ahead of time. And some people will ask, some people will not ask, and you'll have to go up and say, please don't photograph my work. Other people are fine with it because they figure just because you can photograph doesn't mean you can actually do it yourself. There will be people that for some weird reason love to come into your tent and criticize your work, especially as an abstract painter. I get this, where people are kind of like, my 5-year-old could do that. And again, you have to sort of have your answer kind of set for that, knowing that there's a chance that someone's going to get a certain amount of enjoyment out of coming into your tent and criticizing you. Don't know why they feel the need to do that. Think about how you're going to respond when people ask, what are you trying to say with your work? And what is your inspiration? And that's really you building your story, your artist statement, and your brand around what your work is. And again, stay upbeat. Always good to stay upbeat.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a couple of other just quick questions here. Business cards or postcards. I personally like a postcard. We'll go through that a little bit later. That has some of my images on it. It's got my little short bio. It's got my 0 risk commission policy. We'll go through that. I think it's a little bit later on. Be attentive. One of the things we do see often are people, especially that sit at the back of their booth in a low chair and they're on a book or reading a book, or they're reading their iPad or whatever. That is not a very welcoming scenario for someone to come into your tent. I think that one of the things that's important to remember is that if we're artists, we've probably been surrounded by art for a long time. We understand the language of art. There are a lot of people that don't, who have not bought original art before. It's an intimidating process. So try and make it as approachable as possible. And you sitting kind of in your corner where they don't want to ask you a question because they might be disturbing you is not really a good scenario for them. Feel free to approach people. We don't want you to literally drag someone from the aisles, but if you can kind of see that someone's thinking about coming in, but they're just a little bit nervous, then it's totally okay to kind of say, hey, come on in, come take a look. I'd love to share my work with you, and people like that.
Yeah, if someone's standing outside your booth and they're looking at your work, there's no reason why you can't say, oh, welcome. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll just move out here. So what I do, which works for people, which works quite often, is I just say, oh, I'll just move out of the way so you can take a quicker or a closer look. And then I pull out of the booth a little bit, and then they automatically go up close to the work. It happens all the time.
Yeah. One of the ways that a lot of times
that's if someone's looking at your work standing far back, because still there are people with COVID that are distancing. And I think you should still recognize that at these outdoor shows.
Yeah.
So here's a little bit about the print material. Kate, did you want to keep talking?
Sure.
about that?
Like, I think, I think it's, when I do business cards, I tend to do multiple business cards with different images on them. One of the reasons I do that is because some people like to have business cards versus postcards. It also actually allows me to work from a marketing point of view. I get to see what are the images that people are attracted to and what are they picking up and what are the ones that are stuck on my table at the end of the show. And that's kind of some interesting marketing feedback. Vistaprint has good quality work. They're fast. I would recommend them. Certainly you can use your own printer. There's lots of options for printing work.
I think they have a sale on right now. They
Sorry?
often have sales on it. I think there's a 30% off or a 20% off sale right now.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of stuff that often gets posted into the internal Facebook page too. Like if someone sees there's a sale, they'll share that information. Update your artist statement and your CV to include your shows as well as future shows. Print your postcards. Sometimes people print postcards to promote their next show, so they pick it up and it gives you a list of the shows you may be doing in the summer. Sometimes it's just a matter of directing them to your website or your social media. And it's just anything you can do to help people remember you is really valuable. I know that a lot of artists are reluctant to allow kids or people to pick up postcards if they don't think they're serious. I personally think that if I get a postcard into somebody else's hands, then that's really the point of the postcard. It's marketing. And I can tell you that I've absolutely sold pieces to parents whose kids picked up the postcard. So my recommendation would be to try and get as many out there as possible.
Yeah, I've sold work to kids. Like I had somebody stop by the artist project this weekend and said, oh, I'm a lot older now. I have one of your pieces I bought when I was a kid.
Well, that's cool.
3.5 years ago, and now she's really tall. She came with her mom, so that was kind of fun. So you never know who's going to buy your work. So for sure you want to get out there. And another thing people are using a lot is QR codes. So you can create a QR code that links to your website or your social. And that's a really easy way for people who don't want to pick up paper to actually follow you as well.
Yeah. Okay, so pricing is one of the questions we get a lot. You really need to figure out what your pricing is before you go to the show, but it needs to be consistent across the board. It's really important if you're in galleries not to have a different pricing at your outdoor show than you have a gallery. And it's also important not to have, I think, the same size piece as having different pricing. You might really understand that one piece took longer to create than another, but the customer doesn't. And it's easier for them if there's a consistent size with a consistent price. Do the research, find out what other artists are selling their work for. It's always easier to go up, especially if this is your first show, to start to dip your toe in the water, get a sense of how people respond to the work, what the market will bear in terms of pricing. And you can always increase your price at the next show. It's extraordinarily difficult and very bad form to lower your prices after you've raised them. So just really think about that strategy. Have a piece for every price point. We talked about that before, the investment piece that people really have to think about that's going to go over their couch versus an impulse buy that's a little one that they're going to kind of, tuck on the back of the toilet tank or, put in their kids' rooms. Both of those things are valuable. I just did the artist project and basically paid for my booth costs with 6x6 inch paintings. Like they're very, they can be your bread and butter if you kind of manage them properly and you price them appropriately. Red dots, I'm a huge fan of. If you sell something, put a red dot on it and post it. Marketing 101, people love to buy from people who are also already selling. So that helps you to do that. Determine whether or not you do commission work. If you do, what's your policy? What's your process? If you don't do commission work, that's totally fine. A lot of people's art just doesn't lend itself to commissions, but then maybe have a reason and a rationale in talking about why that is the case, just so that customers can appreciate and understand your thought process around that. If you're doing photography, make sure that, or printmaking, people understand how many are in a series of work. That will help for them to determine it helps determine the value of it, and for them an investment if they're looking at doing that. HST is something that by now you should kind of know whether or not you have an HST number or not. That would basically include if your income from all sources is over $30,000 in a calendar year, you are required to have an HST number and collect HST. Of course, the Artist Network does not take a commission or anything at all. This is totally your responsibility to manage it. But if you're getting to that point, it's probably smart to apply for one. Is tax included in your posted price? I personally do not include tax on my posted price, but I do have my Square reader so that automatically adds the tax. So I don't actually even have to have that tax conversation. People hate tax, but they know they have to pay it. So I just like to avoid that whole conversation at all. Fees is $125, it's $125. Their credit card, it comes up $141 with the tax, and nobody really ever thinks about it because that's the way it is. Figure out if you offer discounts for multiple sales. Are you willing to negotiate? Are you not? If you are willing to negotiate, what are the criteria for that? It's important at least to be given some thought to all of these scenarios because they will come up at some point, probably during your outdoor show career. Do you accept credit cards or checks, or how do you deliver your work? Most people use Square. The Square reader is awesome. It's pretty easy. It does take a percentage, and so you have to kind of be aware of that, but that is part of the cost of doing business. I will often take an e-transfer if, especially if people are continuing to walk around the park, they do the e-transfer, you wait till it shows up. So I think that really is up to you. I've also taken checks. It's not as common anymore. And of course, I also take cash, which is also not very common after COVID. So Square is the best system, but if you don't have a payment system, then you can use the Artist Network payment process, and they basically just charge you a 5% fee, which is pretty much the same charge that PayPal charges us. And just take your client to the Artist Network booth.
Yeah, and you need to be a member in order to use that service from the Artist Network.
And someone asked whether or not there's a Wi-Fi hub or a booster. No, there is not. You will have to use your own data to on your phone to be able to do your Square readers. Yeah,
and if you're using your Square reader, make sure you turn up your volume all the way. I think that helps with Square as well. So there's something, and make sure you update your apps before the show. And
make sure your reader does connect. Sometimes they do corrupt. Sometimes things happen to them. So it's good to make sure
test it before the show, because
if you haven't used one before, it's helpful just to put a $1 fee or something through on your credit card, just to make sure you know how to use it and you're not fumbling when, invariably first time you use it will be for this big piece, you'll be all freaking out. So it's good to know how to use that stuff. After the show, follow up on all your leads and be persistent. Make sure you send emails to the people that signed your guest book. Every single person needs to have a guest book. You need to build your database. I know a lot of people rely on Instagram and stuff, but as I can tell you, having lost 6,500 followers on Instagram, there's no guarantee, and those people don't belong to you. Your email list are people that are interested enough in your work to sign up. They're important and they should be treasured, and build that email list as quickly as you can. Take time to evaluate what worked, what didn't work. I think it's always good to do a bit of a post-mortem on things you could do better, things that you did well, and things you could maybe incorporate into the next show. Every show will get a little bit better, a little bit more improved, a little bit easier. And fill out our survey, because we also want to do the same thing and figure out how we can be better.
Mm-hmm. And that's all we have today, unless there's some questions.
How many postcards is one question. I personally usually print a couple of thousand postcards with different creatives, and I just use them for all the shows or until I run out. So I used to do a specific postcard for a specific show that listed all my events, but it was just too hard to guess how many I needed. So I find that's easier.
Yeah, I do the exact same. I print like 750 of each.
Yeah.
I have two different fronts, so I usually print about 750 of each at a time.
How do we participate in the I Gave Art? You just let Angela know you're going to participate and upload the image that you're going to donate, and we will take it from there.
Yeah, so there's in the artist handbook, there's an online form. So there'll be a link to an online form you can just fill in and upload your image so we have it for promotion.
Yeah. Do all works on paper need to be framed? I think if you're having prints, then they could be on mat board. One of my personal pet peeves when I'm buying art is that when I then have to go and try and figure out how to frame it or how to mat it or how to mount it or how to make sure it's safe. So again, make it as easy as possible for someone to buy that piece of art from you and stick it on the wall. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, but it's not a rule. It's not
Not a
a
rule.
we don't have that as a rule in our show. So if you want to clip it, like bag it and clip it, you can do that.
Will you send us the liability insurance required? I believe that everyone's responsible for their own insurance, and we request that you put Artist Network on your insurance rider, which should not cost you anything. Have square readers chart changed? I have the old one. So the little tiny square reader that's like an inch by an inch. First of all, it's becoming more problematic because a lot of phones don't have those jacks anymore. The better one is the square one with the square reader, the big square one. Because the client has to either tap or insert and put their PIN number in, the chances are much lower that you're going to have something returned or that the client can come back and say that they didn't actually authorize the charge.
Yeah, so you want people to insert it, so then they'll have to, versus just tapping, right, Kate?
Yes, one of the other things too is that when they're using a credit card, there's like a 2.5% fee or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but you know, if you're selling something for $1,000 or $2,000, that fee really adds up. If they pay by debit, it's a flat 10-cent fee. So where you have an opportunity, I would strongly suggest you take a debit card versus a credit card.
Yeah, sometimes clients will ask you that. I had a client at TAP on the weekend saying, "Oh, how would you prefer me to pay?" And I said, "Well, if you have debit, that would be awesome because
Yeah.
I pay less fees."
Now, a lot of times clients
Yeah,
use
I
their
can do
credit
that.
cards because they're collecting points and stuff.
Mhm.
How do I get the link to complete your artist profile? That will be coming. That's also will be in the handbook. And I'm sure Angela will explain and
I
link
already
that about
sent them
4,000
all, so
times.
you should have got that.
Yeah.
So in your acceptance email, I asked you to create people as a safe sender. Like that, it's the one that's something dev at whatever Artist Network. That particular email, you need to do those 3 safe senders because it came from that email. So it could be sitting in your junk mail. So I sent those probably either this morning or yesterday, you would have got it. So if you don't see it, if you can't find it, just email me and I'll try to resend it to you. I'll try to have the system send a reminder or send a new one to you. But I've already sent them all for Riverdale.
Question: have people been hesitate to pay by e-transfer? I have found absolutely no hesitancy at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have Apple Pay. Through COVID, they've become so used to paying through their phones. It's actually like a huge mental shift, I think, than it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Where you can get a square reader, you can get them from Walmart, you can get them from Staples. I go directly to squareup.ca and order them directly from the
Yeah, they'll ship it right to your house.
yeah, it takes about 4 or 5 days. So do it now, because there was a situation where they actually ran out of square readers. So we don't want that to happen again. But I would say that's the kind of stuff you can get started on right now and prepare it. So if we don't have them added to a safe sender, would the emails go to junk? They may. So the problem is that it depends on what kind of spam reader filter you have on your email list. I have some that go to junk, but I also have some that determined they were spam and I never see them. So I didn't even know that I'd missed these emails. So that's why, as Angela said, it's important to put those names into your safe sender list and put them into your contacts.
Yeah, so if you're not sure how to create a safe sender, because people don't always know how to do that, just add it to your contact list and then it will become a safe sender. Like you could just email that email and then just click on the email and say add to contacts.
Yeah. For your booth, can I put up an art banner? Absolutely. So one of the things that it's hard to attach a banner to the front of the tent. Sometimes there's the thought that you can kind of attach it to the front panel of the tent. That's actually quite difficult because it moves around a lot and it's hard to create something that's going to stay. What I do is I have a piece of coroplast that's about, I don't know, 8 inches by 36 inches. It's got grommets on it and I attach it to the inside frame of the tent. So it doesn't obliterate the art, but it very clearly shows my name. And some people say they add the cloth to the front side of the table. That works too. Yeah. It is good to have your branding in your tent at some point somewhere. And take lots of pictures. It's also really great after the fact. Sometimes you're in such a frenzy, so much stuff's going on, but it's really great to take a few pictures so you can remind yourself of what you did, what things looked like, what you did well, the work that was there, the park, the people around you. Just really enjoy it. It's a fun show.
I like taking pictures of people if they take a little piece home or whatever, taking a picture and reminding myself of all these like happy faces, and you can use them to post. But even if you don't post them, it's sort of just a nice, it's actually my record keeping. Sometimes when I get really busy at a show, I'll just take a picture of them and then I'll take a picture of the back of the art. So if I didn't have time to write it in my book right then, and I didn't take down all the information properly, at least I know what piece I sold.
Yeah. I do that with pretty much every single person that buys a piece of my art. I take their picture with the art.
Yeah, it's very rare that people don't want I have a couple clients that don't like the picture take.
Yeah.
But
missed the comment about the liability insurance. So do you want to weigh on this? Maybe I didn't make it clear enough, Ange.
so we recommend that you get insurance. I don't know if it's actually required in our contract, Kate. So we
not.
definitely recommend that you have insurance, because you're signing a contract that everything is at your own risk. Right. So we have overall insurance, but we don't have individual insurance for the artist. So if you have something happen, if something gets stolen or something gets damaged or whatever, you're not covered. So if somebody hurts themselves in your booth, like that's on, like, it's really your liability insurance that you need to actually get. And I think there's a bunch of different companies that do that. You can, I don't know if we have one that we recommend, but it's about what, $90 a show or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think Jamie maybe had a list of a bunch of different companies. That's a really good question to ask in the social, like in the Facebook group, because there's quite a few different companies that will actually do it. So I don't know if we would recommend one over another.
And if you already have business insurance, like if you actually are renting a studio, or if your art business is incorporated or something like that, you may already have business insurance, then you don't actually have to pay extra for it. You just have to get them to put Artist Network on a rider so that you have it available. It's free. They do that for you all the time. Okay, I think we've had you for a long time. So if there's any more questions, please reach out to us. Or, the Facebook page is an awesome place for kind of that group community to help out. Because I appreciate that we've just thrown a huge amount of content at you. I'm sure you're all feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but it will all come together and it will be great. And I think you will really love the community that attends the Artist Network. It's a pretty fun event.
Yeah, so just one last little point. The last couple of days, I've had a problem with my Angela at Artist Network email. So if you've been emailing me and haven't heard from me in the last couple of days, it's not just because I was at a show, but my email's bouncing back. So I'm trying to get that fixed. Hopefully it'll be fixed tomorrow. If it's not, I'm going to just send another email that you can communicate with me through the Eventany link, but you can also communicate through that messaging system in Eventany. That's where you created your submission. So I'll go in there and I'll look for messages. It's just, I'm having some challenges with my Artist Network email right now, just the last few days. So if you emailed me in the last few days and you haven't heard from me, just email me again. Or reach out to me through. I didn't get the email.
I did, and I didn't get the response, so I was wondering.
Yeah, so there's I haven't seen my email since I think last week Wednesday. I haven't gotten an email from the artist. Angela at artistnetwork.ca isn't working. So just reach out to me through Eventany, and then if it's not fixed tomorrow, I'll give you a new email.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Kate.
We're gonna rock it.
Yeah.
Everybody, I hope you have an awesome show. Yay!
Woo.